Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Since we've officially entered the holiday season, which is my favorite time of year, today I wanted to talk about the origins of Christmas and why we celebrate it. So growing up, I feel like I had a pretty typical childhood Christmas experience. Like, we believed in Santa our whole childhoods, and we decorated a tree, and we watched Christmas movies, baked cookies, all that jazz. We had a really classic Christmas childhood, which is typical, but my family isn't religious in any aspect. My parents aren't Christian or anything, and so like growing up, like a nativity set wasn't a big part of Christmas for me, or really like celebrating the birth of Christ when a lot of my friends celebrated that. So once I was like in my teenage years and like early adulthood, I was like, I'm kind of just curious why we even celebrate Christmas. So I decided to do a little bit of research on the cultural significance of Christmas, because I feel like a lot of people probably have the same experience. And so I wanted to learn where all these traditions come from, why we participate in them. So grab your Christmas sweaters and your hot beverage, and let's get into it. Okay, so the very first piece of evidence that we have to trace back to the start of Christmas is an ancient Roman festival that was called Saturnalia. This isn't super well known, honestly. I feel like most people I've talked to about it haven't known about it, but the festival was celebrated at the end of the year around December 17th, celebrating the winter solstice and to honor the Roman god Saturn, he was the god of agriculture. So since this was kind of celebrated around the end of December and that sort of time, many people point towards it as one of the first origins of Christmas. And the Romans celebrated the winter solstice mainly during this festival, which you'll find is really common with like early Christmas origins, because people were celebrating the fact that the days were about to start getting longer and it was less dark and winter was ending, and it was just like a time of everybody was together and excited, because who likes the dark days. And so the Romans basically during this festival, they just did a lot of very Roman things. They did a lot of drinking and partying and feasting and just like all around letting loose. It was kind of all of the poor people came into the streets and just rioted, and it was kind of just anything goes during this time. And so it was very just crazy and wild, and one of the bigger things that they participated in during this festival was gift giving. They gave each other things like candles and little figurines made out of like terracotta, and they gave each other gifts and gifts to honor the god Saturn. And prior to the idea that we have of Saint Nicholas, this is kind of like one of the first examples that we have in history of gift giving around this time, which kind of serves as our origin into our tradition of giving gifts on Christmas, because that's one of the most common practices. And then another pretty well-known Christmas origin would be Yule, and I think a lot more people know about Yule. It's an ancient Germanic festival which also celebrated the winter solstice, the returning of light in the last week of December, similar to Saturnalia. And this festival often lasted 12 days. It could last 3 days, but it was typically a 12-day festival. So I don't know if you know the 12 days of Christmas, partridge in a pear tree, that kind of thing. And this holiday is actually celebrated by a lot of people still today. It's typically celebrated by pagan people or people who identify as like witches or practice witchcraft, but it's kind of like converted into or like merged into Christmas over time. And some of the bigger traditions of Yule included the burning of the Yule log, or decorating with evergreens and lighting candles. And to start off, I think the Yule log might sound familiar to you. Maybe your family bakes a Yule log, or maybe you just spend time in front of a fireplace during Christmas. But during Yule, the Yule log was typically an entire tree trunk that was burned all 12 days of the festival to symbolize like warmth and light, and it was just a big big symbol during the festival, and now it's kind of merged into, I think people still light fires a lot during Christmas, and also people typically bake Yule logs today is a really common modern tradition. My family does that, and or it could be called like a bûche de Noël, and it's like a cake in the shape of a Yule log, and this stems from the celebration of Yule. And then potentially the biggest, like most common tradition to come from Yule would be the Christmas tree. So during Yule, people would oftentimes bring in garlands or wreaths or entire evergreen trees into their homes. And this is because evergreen trees symbolize like eternal life through winter. So people would bring in all this greenery and decorate with trees because it just symbolizes like the persistence of life through winter, and all these people have persisted, and now we've reached, winter solstice, and winter is hitting the midway point. And so this was like a very common way to celebrate the holiday, and it's still one of our most common celebrations now. Just we typically decorate them with lights and ornaments and everything else, but this is a very like original part of Christmas. So the celebrations like Yule and Saturnalia and others kind of saw an end around the time of like the 17th century-ish, and later especially into the Victorian era. But originally this was mainly because of the Christianization of peoples during this time, especially of Germanic peoples regarding Yule, and the holiday was kind of taken and spun into Christmas over time. And same with Saturnalia, the kind of like rioting, chaotic drinking and partying of Saturnalia really persisted past the ancient Roman time. And during the Protestant Reformation in Europe, the large figures during that time were trying to switch the narrative of these celebrations into centering the birth of Christ and devotion, and just switching the narrative to something more centered around religion, because that's what was going on in Western culture at that time. So if we go forward in history towards the 1800s, our current model of Christmas honestly originated with Queen Victoria and can be accounted for by her. She was a very prominent queen and deemed very iconic for a lot of different parts of her reign over the UK. And regarding Christmas, like she really put the holiday on the map and really honestly like centralized the idea of Christmas, because of her iconic Christmas tree was a really big deal. So her Christmas tree, there's many images of it, were shown with gifts and lavish decorations, and it was really highly publicized by the UK government and news sources to potentially promote like familial and national unity, as it was amidst a time of pretty serious socio-political tensions and unease. And so this Christmas tree and this idea of Christmas and the extravagant part of it was just important for all of these people, all these British people, to see and look at as a model, and it honestly made Christmas a lot more important to them, as before we've just seen the riots and whatever else is going on, but now there's this crazy new idea of Christmas. So along with Queen Victoria, we've also got another really important character here, which is Charles Dickens. And I'm sure most of you know who Charles Dickens is and have some experience with his really famous story, A Christmas Carol. I know I grew up going to see a lot of different like local performances of A Christmas Carol, and it's just very widely like redone in places, and it's really familiar for Christmas. And however, what I didn't know is that how important of a role Dickens played in the development of Christmas. So like prior to A Christmas Carol, we really only had like two models of Christmas, which is the persistent riotous, chaotic festival celebrations like Saturnalia, and then the very lavish and wealthy celebrations like with Queen Victoria. Then Dickens comes along with A Christmas Carol, and he depicts a working class family exchanging gifts and eating a special feast of Christmas goose, and it sort of sets off this revolution where Christmas becomes very familial centered and applicable for everybody. You could be rich or poor, and either way, Christmas is a special day to spend with your family, and that's really important for the holiday. And so this kind of honestly just totally shifts the narrative with Christmas, and it really like blossoms into the holiday that we know of today, and he can really be accounted for what we know about Christmas. And then with Dickens and with Queen Victoria, this time period really centralizes the idea of the Christmas dinner as part of the holiday. And all of these literary works and news outposts eventually reach the United States, and Christmas dinner becomes really Americanized and honestly really important in, again, the idea of familial unity transferring to national unity, as the United States is amidst coming out of the Civil War, and there's a lot of things going on, and it's the idea that families can spend time together, and there's a lot of people immigrating into the United States, and it's just a way for people to feel together nationally and on a smaller scale. So Christmas becomes a time for people to really go all out and be luxurious, and the idea of like the Christmas bird becomes a really big tradition, which is treating the whole family to a turkey or a goose, depending on what your financial status was. And it's just the idea that the Christmas dinner is a big centerpiece, and it's a financial status sort of thing. And so people also are eating things like stuffing and potatoes and mince pies and plum puddings. They're all very like heavy and lavish foods that you would only make this time of the season, and with extra money being spent on the meal. And so this is honestly really carried on to today, with families gather on Christmas night and eat a really special meal together. And I think this is seen a lot on Thanksgiving too, but it's still an important part of Christmas. But I think during this time period, it was a really central part of the holiday. So now that you know a good amount about where Christmas came from and how we celebrate it and why is it so commonly celebrated? And if you don't know how commonly it's celebrated, this might help. And I think that the answer is honestly that it's just simply a cultural phenomenon. It's been around for longer than any of us really imagined, I think, and I feel like it's honestly instinctual at this point. And while we're much farther progressed than our Germanic ancestors celebrating Yule, we still crave the warmth and community and light during the darkest part of the year, and it's natural for us to want to spend time with our loved ones and gather and eat filling meals and give each other things. There's also hugely the commodification of Christmas and the way it's developed through capitalism and consumerism, especially in America over the last century, and that now we have Christmas movies and we have buying tons of stuff and Christmas decorations. But to go into that might be a whole nother video, so maybe I'll make that one later. But yeah, I hope that you learned something new through this video, and maybe you have a different outlook on Christmas and are more excited to celebrate it this month since it's coming up. Or maybe you'll just have a really cool fact to tell your family when you sit down and eat your Christmas goose on the 25th. So take some extra time to reflect during the holiday season and enjoy the time that we're given to rest and be with our loved ones. And Merry Christmas. Thank you for watching.